The next great resource for local weather is now available.
DigitalWeatherDesk.com is your source for up-to-the-minute local weather. Add DigitalWeatherDesk.com to your favorites, download our app, and follow me on social media. The Digital Weather Desk, powered by Century Next Bank.
Hey everybody, good morning, happy Tuesday. Welcome to the work week for those that were off yesterday, and welcome to the Digital Weather Desk powered by Century Next Bank. I'm Jared Floyd. A lot to cover, so let's kind of jump right into things. Of course, for those that are just seeing this video or joining us live or will join us after the fact, there's a lot to cover. I-20 moving smoothly at 7:30, but here's a look at the weather headlines. We are watching the potential for an impactful winter storm across the region. I really am trying to focus the messaging and the wording as delicately as possible because it is a very delicate and nuanced forecast that will get increasingly more delicate as we move through the rest of the week. We are watching the potential for an Arctic cold front to bring some of the coldest air of the season, if not the coldest air of the season, and perhaps the coldest air we've seen. If the computer models verify, perhaps the coldest air we've seen in a couple of years, if not many years, across the region. Again, that's a lot of hyperbole and a lot of exaggeration and a lot of drama for something that's still a long way from now, and a lot can change between now and then. We are watching for the possibility of accumulating ice and sleet. That seems to be the dominating precipitation types for this weekend. Still time for all of that to change, and I want to fully acknowledge that. Check the infrared satellite. We are dealing with the clouds. Hey, did you see the northern lights last night? Some folks did. I didn't. But yeah, maybe you did. And if you did, good for you. Hopefully you enjoyed it. A check of what's going on across the area, and again, I'm also checking because I'm seeing that the freezing rain icon covers up the precipitation chances on the city-by-city forecast. Something that I'll fix later. It's not something that we need to fix now. But anyway, take a look at the infrared satellite. The clouds starting to increase, and they were on the increase across the area late last night. It did obscure some folks' view of the northern lights. Your radar made possible by Brown's Roofing. Schedule your free roof inspection, brownsroofingla.com. Not a whole lot happening in our area, but we do expect the rain to return rather swiftly as we go through the early part of the day tomorrow. A lot of us are close to the freezing marks. 24 in Little Rock to start the day. It's 10 in Fayetteville, 19 in Tupelo, 23 in Memphis. It is a cold start across the region. Most of us back well below freezing, or at least near the freezing mark. But across southern Arkansas, it's well below freezing. 25 in Camden, 26 in El Dorado and Monticello, 25 in Greenville, 30 in Lake Providence, 33 in Monroe, 31 Ruston, 34 in Natchez. So again, as we go through the day, expect daytime highs to eventually land, I would call it low to mid-50s, but some upper 50s depending on the sunshine is certainly a possibility as well. Check the dew points. Quite dry. We're going to have to overcome a lot of low-level moisture, which shouldn't be a problem over the coming days. And again, winds are out of the northeast, generally in the 5 to 10 mile an hour range this morning. A look at Futurecast made possible by Bayou Power Sports, I-20 frontage road in Monroe. Winds back out of the southeast as we go through the nighttime hours tonight, but the clouds are swift to return through the overnight. And the rain's pretty quick to follow. So, again, expect sunshine through most of the day. And then the clouds roll in tonight. Rain setting up by around this time tomorrow. Be prepared for showers to fester through much of the day, capped by a cold front that will advance through the area tomorrow afternoon. There may be the brief window of opportunity, maybe, for a thunderstorm or two across the region. But overall, that's not expected to really be the main headline in the forecast. It looks to just generally be a rainmaker across the area. And then that boundary moves off to the east. Wouldn't be surprised to see some scattered showers fester through a good chunk of the day Thursday, especially in the southern counties and parishes. Liquid rain, just showers, most of it scattered. Again, southern parishes through the day on Thursday. And then we pivot to the potential mess that we deal with this weekend. We'll get to that in a minute. A look at rain totals. Again, generally speaking, let me tweak this graphic real quick. I meant to fix this, and yes, you're seeing a gray screen, but I don't feel like bringing myself up full screen. But so this is rain totals simply through 8 a.m. Tuesday. Thursday. So I don't want to get the liquid equivalent of any kind of wintry precipitation included in this forecast. We're really just focusing on the rain forecast for Thursday. Generally has us in a third to a half inch. Those totals were a little bit more aggressive yesterday, had us generally in the half to full inch range. I still wouldn't be surprised to see some 2/3 or 3/4 of an inch rain totals across the region through Thursday morning. The official rainfall forecast over the next 3 days, again, takes into account some of the liquid equivalent going into Friday and even some of the Thursday rainfall, but again, generally has most of us in the half to 3/4 of an inch range. All right, so let's pivot to the weekend, and we pick up that computer model kind of where we left it Thursday morning with the straggling showers through the morning hours on Thursday. I would expect that to, again, be a possibility through much of the day, setting us up for rain to start across the area on Friday. But meanwhile, as the fire hose of moisture starts, note our northeasterly winds continuing to filter a lot of cold air into the region. So northeasterly winds pulling cold air in. Meanwhile, we're overrunning a lot of moisture in the form of shower activity across most of the area through the early part of the day Friday. Note that Futurecast indicated here that a lot of spots are already dropping below freezing by Friday morning, and that this would eventually see it change over to rain, freezing rain, and eventually sleet. As you go deeper into time and that colder air continues to sink farther southward, you see more and more of the area change over to that freezing rain sleet mixture. And by Friday night, temperatures are well below freezing across a good chunk of the region, and you're looking at a prolonged period of time dealing with wintry precipitation. Again, I cannot stress enough that this is just one computer model's output. This is raw model data. This is not an official forecast. But it's been very persistent with this scenario. And not only has it been persistent with the scenario, as you get outside of its time frame and its ability to forecast, which is about 6 a.m. on Saturday, again, higher resolution models only go so far out in time forecasting the weather. Then you have to move to other model data to forecast from there on out. So we go from the Barron 3K model, which we were just looking at, to the 15K model, which is a lower resolution, goes farther out in time. And we picked that up Saturday morning. Again, a winter weather mess across the region. Continuing through the day Saturday. Again, the computer model data is hinting, and it's not just this computer model. I'm not handpicking this one to say, I want to bring the most extreme scenario to the forefront just to get all the attention. Most of the data has been very insistent and very unanimous on a prolonged period of fairly heavy wintry precipitation. And those computer models also continue to stretch that window out for a longer period of time, and I'll get to why in just a minute. But it now also has wintry precipitation of some sort across much of the area, even into early Sunday morning, and in some instances through the early half of the day on Sunday. So start wintry precipitation Friday night, through the day Saturday, into early Sunday, and maybe in some instances even into Sunday evening before we can shut the fire hose of moisture off. And I'll explain why this change is starting to happen. And again, you can see some extreme low temperatures indicated by the 15K model. It tries to drop us into the single digits by Monday morning. Is that in the forecast currently? No. So again, now that that has gotten your attention, here's another model data, another round of model data. And again, this is picking up at about 6 a.m. on Saturday, the same time frame that I just picked that other model up from, 6 a.m. on Saturday. This is the GFS model. And again, it paints a prolonged picture of wintry precipitation, not to mention the temperatures. And again, I think the temperatures may be a smidge overcooked. I don't expect us to be in the teens Saturday afternoon. If we are, for some reason, in the low 20s to teens for Saturday afternoon as wintry precipitation continues, we would more than likely be looking at a pretty heavy sleet event across the region. And I wouldn't be surprised to see more snow than what is forecast if temperatures are that cold, which I don't think they'll be that cold. Again, the GFS paints a prolonged picture of wintry precipitation through early Sunday morning before skies start to clear, and then it brings us into some very cold air for Monday before temperatures start to slowly modify for the middle parts of next week. So why the change? Why this prolonged period of precipitation? Well, it was already prolonged to begin with. But as we go through the next couple of days, we set this into motion. I've showed this map for several days now, but if you're just joining us and you're seeing this map for the first time, the colors that you see in the background are what's called total precipitable water. We're basically looking at the total amount of moisture in the column of air above us. Higher amounts of moisture obviously mean just deeper amounts of moisture in all levels of the atmosphere. The moving fast, super spinny lines are mid-level winds. We're just looking at the mid-level pattern, if you will. This white squiggle is the freezing line at the surface, so 32 degrees. Anything north of that is below freezing. So as we go into motion through the middle parts of this week, you can see the Wednesday storm system. You can see, the moisture that's being stirred up, but also just the little dip in the jet stream. You see this little dip in the mid-level winds, this trough of low pressure, just kind of wandering its way through, moseys its way through, pushes a cold front through the area. And it brings the showers through much of the day on Wednesday. Thank you to all the folks that are hopping in and saying hello in the comments. I would normally rapid fire all of those, and I will in just a minute, but I'm trying to prove a point here. But thank you so much for joining us. So as we go into the day Friday, again, subtropical moisture being funneled, and we've been talking about this for a couple of days now, by this upper level feature, which just serves as a funnel out over the Pacific coastline, just funneling moisture in. Meanwhile, we've got this cold air continuing to sink farther southward, and this freezing line is going to move farther southward too. So we put this into motion. Freezing line drifts farther southward, continuing to just send the moisture up and over the freezing line. So now all that moisture is falling in the form of precipitation. It's hitting the ground either in the form of sleet or freezing rain, at least in our area, at least how things pan out right now. Here's where the change in the forecast comes, all right? This is where the data's changed, I would think, in the last 6 to 12 hours, really in the last 12 hours. Last 2 model cycles, we've started to note this change. Instead of this upper low staying stalled to the southwest, because if you joined us yesterday, the upper low stayed to the south, it stayed stalled to the southwest. The cold air continued to trudge in from the northwest, and it eventually cuts that moisture source off. We eventually just shut the moisture off because that air is so dry and so dense. The difference in the model data today is this upper low, instead of staying closed off and stalled to the southwest, stays opened up and phased into the upper level pattern. So instead of staying stalled out here, it's going to continue to kind of ooze eastward in the upper level pattern. So it just keeps turning the fire hose on. So the fire hose stays on through the day Saturday. We never really get that cold air to shut off the fire hose. Moisture continues even into early Sunday before finally the drier, colder air wins over. The upper disturbance starts to clear out. Now, that also therein leaves its own kind of set of issues, because we were relying on that upper low to move eastward early next week to bring some warm air in and some rain back in and kind of thaw us out. But now we don't have that. If the upper low, if that disturbance phases into the pattern and just continues to stay progressive in the pattern and moves eastward, we don't have that to thaw us out next week. So then you run into the possibility of really cold air and ice setting in Saturday, Sunday, maybe Monday, and the slow thaw means that we could be dealing with a lot of this stuff into the early parts of next week. So that is something to keep in mind. A reminder of our precipitation types. Again, we usually see rain. Starts as snow, melts. Freezing rain, starts as snow, melts, hits something at ground level, freezes on, hits something at ground level that's below freezing and freezes on to that surface. Bridges, power lines, tree branches, anything and everything. It is the most disruptive of precipitation types, to be honest with you. Sleet, which is also possible, especially if the air gets cold enough at ground level, starts as snow, melts because there's a warm pocket of air aloft, and then hits another refreezing layer near ground level, turns into an ice pellet. Tink, tink, tink. Those things hurt, but they are better to deal with than freezing rain. Snow stays frozen all the way down. Oh, man. Good morning to everybody. Art K, Jerry, Sue, Janet, Ida, Pam, Bobby, Carter, Alice, Doris, Susie, Ruby, Ann, Peavy, Mike, Betty, Melanie, May, Ginger, Ken, Sandy, Jean, Teresa, Brandon, Elizabeth, Mimi, Lori, Wanda, Becky, Christina, Jean. Everybody, good morning. Thank you so much for joining in. So here's where we are in the forecast. We've already passed this 6 to 8 day time frame where we, pay attention to all the patterns and all that stuff. We're kind of still in this 4 to 5 day pattern where the confidence continues to increase and we kind of try to make sense out of what the models are throwing at us, no matter how extreme the data is. But today and into tomorrow, we'll start phasing into this part of the forecast where we start trying to determine the types of precipitation, the timing of that precipitation, locations, and then tomorrow I think we would talk more about the possible totals. And then as we get closer and into the actual event itself, we look at the actual direct impacts. Another thing that I continue to harp on is the concern for bitter cold across the region. And as you take a look at futurecast temperatures, I want to again draw attention to the fact that a lot of the model guidance, and this is based on the NBM of temperature, the National Blend of Models, which is, I think, a really good balance of a lot of different data, and I think has the best grip on terms of temperatures of what we're going to deal with this weekend. It drops a lot of areas below freezing across southern Arkansas by Friday evening, if not sooner. So again, any precipitation that's falling turns into something frozen at that point. For the rest of the area, it's going to be a Friday night, Saturday morning probable changeover. Again, that's according to the data now, but the data continues to trend even colder. And if it continues to trend colder, then that changeover happens even sooner. The southern parishes and counties, it may be still deeper into the day on Saturday before you see any type of precipitation changeover. But I will say that the model data really points toward wintry precipitation of some sort for the entire area, which does make the forecast a smidge easier in that regard. Instead of trying to figure out who's going to see what, we're still going to have different layers and different types, and that's going to lead to different accumulations and different changeovers. This is going to be a really, really messy forecast if we try to get into the types and totals right now. But again, there's going to get a point where the rubber meets the road in the next day or two where we're going to have to start discussing that type of stuff. Morning lows Sunday, upper teens to near 20. Certainly a possibility. I think it's more and more likely now that much of the area does not get above freezing this weekend. Saturday specifically, but Sunday looking more and more likely that a lot of us aren't going to get above freezing. Monday morning could potentially be the coldest morning of the year. Again, I say that with bated breath, knowing that February is still ahead of us, but I really think at this point that Monday morning, as we bring the coldest air in over an ice pack potentially, that teens widespread across the area seem very feasible. Single digits are not out of the question. I know a lot of folks have asked another thing, and this is a very viable question. What about wind? Ice and wind don't go well together. Ice storm of 99 in Arkansas. I remember it to this day like it was yesterday, and it was we could walk down the middle of the streets because there were no cars because nobody could drive on it, and you couldn't walk on the sidewalks because all the power lines and trees were down. And yeah, I remember that one. It was a doozy. In full disclosure, as you take a look at the cold weather preps, most of you know this stuff. My computer is at the bottom of it is saying 18 inches of snow Saturday. I want to stress to folks how much the different precipits can mean in different accumulations. If you get an inch of rainfall, let's say an inch of rain, and it all turns to freezing, and it's all freezing rain, then obviously you're probably going to get to near an inch of an ice of accumulation. But you can't always assume that all of that water is going to freeze. Again, delicate forecast. Sleet, those, because they're ice pellets and it's gone through the melting and refreeze process, the liquid equivalent drops dramatically. And so you can get, in terms of ice accumulation, you can get a much smaller amount of ice, but it still be just as disruptive. My printer is going off. Weird. And so, again, a little bit of sleet goes a long way, but translates out to a larger liquid equivalent. And then also with snow. An inch of rain translates out on a 10-to-1 ratio. We're talking 10 inches of rain 10 inches of snow to 1 inch of rain. So you're talking an inch of rain would be the liquid equivalent of 10 inches of snow. The downside of that is our equivalents are never 10-to-1, and you can't assume that all of that's going to be snow. There's going to be some snow. There's going to be some ice. There's going to be some sleet. There's going to be all kinds of stuff in southern Arkansas. So I say all that to say we just don't know totals yet. I think I just completely turned myself into, I just spun myself into a spin cycle trying to explain that. But essentially, if you get more ice, then obviously you're going to get less sleet or less snow. If you get more snow, surprisingly, for some reason, you're going to get less sleet, less ice. So all of these you're robbing Peter to pay Paul in terms of all these different totals and all the different types of precipitation you're going to get. And it makes the precipitation, the accumulation forecast really, really tricky. That's what I was basically trying to get to. Leslie does ask, we're traveling to Shreveport on Saturday from Ruston. Should we go ahead and start making other plans? Genuinely, Leslie, it depends on how customizable and how cancelable those plans are. Overnight lows tonight will be in the low 40s. The chance of rain increases overnight. Some areas will see showers by daybreak. In fact, my parents are supposed to come down this weekend and visit. They get an Airbnb when they come down, just so we can all have our own room. And they're planning to come down Saturday. They can cancel up till Friday. My mom was already like, I'm going to cancel. She's probably watching right now. She's like, I'm going to go ahead and cancel. I was like, just wait. Like, we got time. But it really depends on like, again, how cancelable or how changeable your plans are. If they're changeable and it's not that big a deal, I would probably go ahead and start thinking about rescheduling. If you have to make a decision now, then I would say probably not a good idea. Cheer Nationals this weekend in Fort Worth, Texas. Have fun with that. Mid-50s, showers return tomorrow. Most of that will be, again, shower activity, fairly scattered to start, becoming more widespread as the day progresses. Rain chances are up to 70% as we go through the daytime hours on Wednesday. Upper 50s for highs on Thursday. And then Friday's high temperatures are really a tough call because, again, the cold front's going to be moving through and we'll be trending even colder as we go through the day Friday. I bumped the precip chances up to 70% on Saturday, with morning lows falling into the teens by Monday morning. So you can take away from that, Saturday, midnight high low. So that 32 that you see Saturday is at midnight Saturday. The 22 that you see Saturday is at midnight going into Sunday. Temperatures are likely to fall through the day Saturday. 32 at midnight is about as cold is about as warm as we can expect to be in the Monroe area. I'd expect portions of southern Arkansas to already be well below freezing and accumulating wintry precipitation at that point. For southern parishes and counties, it's going to take you folks a little bit longer to get below freezing. In fact, it may take a good chunk of the day Saturday to get below freezing. But that's how the forecast shakes out for right now. I cannot stress enough, this forecast is going to change. The data is going to continue to get refined. The forecast from here on in, if everything continues to pan out the way it sits right now, the forecast gets really, really fun from here, in my mind as a meteorologist, because, again, it gets really nuanced. And you can't really hide behind You can't really hide behind anything in terms of building these forecasts. You can't hide behind the model data. You can't hide behind Chat GPT. You can't hide behind AI. It takes a human meteorologist to take all these numbers and know that if you get more sleet, it means less ice, blah, 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 blah. And the forecast gets extremely nuanced from here on in. And I freaking love it. I cannot wait to get into this forecast if the data continues to pan out. The downside to that is we could be looking at a potentially disruptive winter storm across the area. And as Robert just mentioned, this is the point where everybody empties the milk, bread, and toilet paper from everywhere. So before we get into this, let's say this for everybody else. Be nice to your neighbor. We will thaw out eventually. That 42 on Monday is wrong. I meant to change that. Let me change it real quick. We will thaw out eventually, but I don't want folks going and overbuying stuff. Just buy what you need for a couple of days. You don't need toilet paper for the next 3 months. So just we're going to thaw out. But like I said, it's one of those, see, I tweaked the forecast high. That was a typo. My apologies. But we're going to thaw out. So again, be considerate of your neighbor when you do go to, and yeah, everybody probably not a bad idea to go grab, or make sure that you have some extra cans of food in the pantry, or just make sure that you have food for the weekend. Make sure that as we go into the next couple of days, that when you get settled on Friday, be prepared to not go anywhere Saturday and Sunday, and maybe Monday. So again, prepare for several days, 2, 3, maybe 4 days of sitting at home on your booty. But don't go just buy everything out, because everybody else has got to get stuff too. And we still have time for this forecast to change. It's a lot of French toast if you go buy all that stuff and nothing ever happens. Amy says, praying for our alignment. Yes, thank you so much for them and what they do. A reminder that there will be a lot of folks that are going to be putting in a lot of extra hours over the next couple of days. So that leads me to this. So where does my content and updating you go from here? Terry asked, during the last big ice storm, did I lose power? I was not, during the last big ice storm here, no. And I was still working in broadcast, clearly, because I've only been doing this for a couple of months. So I was up at the station during the last ice storm back in 2021. But my wife did not lose power here. And we are generator backup. We have a generator now. So we're going to be updating you whether you want to be updated or not. So the next update comes midday. I would expect that update at around 12:31. Normally I would wait till even a little bit later into the afternoon for updates, but I've got a meeting this afternoon, so we're just bending and flexing the schedule. Too Long Didn't Read set to go out at 9:30. I'll have an early afternoon. I call them articles, but basically, you know me. I write a big long thing out, and then you get a Too Long Didn't Read at the bottom. I expect to have that out this afternoon. But just generally expect frequent updates over the next couple of days. Updates when you need them. And expect the schedule to change. Normally we do 3 live streams. We do Too Long Didn't Read at 9:30. We do the fishing game at night. We blah, 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 blah. I would expect the schedule to bend and flex and be a lot more customizable over the next week. And that is, again, the benefit of this digital weather platform. Basically meaning I do plan to bring you, if this forecast continues to point the direction that it's pointing, I do expect to bring you frequent updates through the weekend. Our late live stream on Wednesday may be much later. I may be bringing you kind of a mid-late afternoon stream on Wednesday, and then an evening or nighttime stream. My wife's going to be out of town for a good chunk of the day, so going to try to alter the schedule. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, again, we may alter the schedule to kind of adjust to all the incoming data that'll be coming in, and also the precipitation as it moves in as well. But I also will probably be a little bit more firm on the start times of a lot of those updates. That way, if you want to join them, that you can join them. Usually I'm really, really flexible and go, oh, I'll just join you whenever. I'll probably give you some more set times as we go through the next couple of days, just so folks that want that updates live, they can be there and ask questions and stuff like that. Forecast is always available at digitalweatherdesk.com and on the Digital Weather Desk app, available for Apple and Android users. Again, too long didn't read, set to go out in about an hour and a half. Full forecast update set to go midday as we get the new data suite, new dump of data, if you will, that comes out in the next couple of hours. Should be interesting. And, of course, I'll just bring you more updates as we go through the next couple of days, preparing for what could be an impactful weekend. Thanks so much for stopping by the Digital Weather Desk, powered by Century Next Bank. As always, thanks so much for joining us. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for making this part of your day, and enjoy your Tuesday.